Liam had never known a world without spirit. From the moment he could walk, the magnificent white stallion had been his companion, his confidant, his sanctuary. In the quiet countryside where rolling fields met the endless sky, they had grown up together, inseparable. Mornings were sacred. As the first golden light bathed the earth, Liam would race to the stable, where Spirit waited with patient eyes, ears flicking in anticipation. There was an understanding between them, something deeper than words. Liam never needed reins to guide Spirit. A simple shift in his weight, a whispered command, and the horse responded as if they shared the same soul. Liam's parents had passed when he was young, leaving him in the care of his aging grandfather, a man of few words but quiet wisdom. Trust is a rare gift, his grandfather often said. Once broken, it's near impossible to mend. Liam had taken those words to heart, though he'd never truly grasped their weight. After all, trust had never been an issue, not with Spirit. But life was not meant to remain unchanged. One autumn afternoon, as Liam rode through the valley, Spirit's hooves kicking up golden leaves, he noticed a figure by the old wooden fence. A girl, no older than himself, stood watching with curiosity. Wind played with her auburn hair, and when their eyes met, she smiled. "You ride like you belong to the horse," she said, stepping closer. Liam slid off Spirit's back, unsure whether to feel embarrassed or proud. "Maybe I do," he replied, brushing a hand over Spirit's mane. The girl introduced herself as Elena, a newcomer to the village. She had always loved horses but had never been allowed to ride. "My father says they're unpredictable," she admitted, running a hesitant hand along Spirit's neck. The stallion remained still, his deep brown eyes studying her. "He trusts you," Liam observed. "That's rare." Their friendship grew swiftly. Elena visited the stable every evening, eager to learn about Spirit. Liam taught her how to ride, guiding her hands as she took the reins for the first time. At first, she was nervous, but under Liam's watchful gaze, she found confidence. Laughter filled the open fields as she learned to match Spirit's rhythm, her joy infectious. Somewhere in those golden afternoons, something changed. The world felt different with Elena beside him. Her presence turned the ordinary into something meaningful. Liam had always found solace in the quiet companionship of Spirit, but now, for the first time, his heart beat faster for someone else. Spirit, ever the silent observer, seemed to sense the shift. He would nuzzle Liam whenever Elena arrived, almost as if reminding him of something unspoken. Yet, Liam ignored the flicker of unease in the stallion's eyes. He had no reason to doubt her. Not yet. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, Elena stood by the stable, a distant look in her eyes. "Do you think trust lasts forever?" she asked suddenly. Liam chuckled, stroking Spirit's mane. "If it's real, yes." Elena only smiled, but something in her gaze lingered, unreadable. The air felt different that night, but Liam, lost in the warmth of newfound love, never noticed the first whisper of change. Autumn faded into winter, and with it, the bond between Liam and Elena grew deeper. The world outside the countryside was cold and indifferent, but within the stables, within the endless fields where Spirit carried them across the land, warmth thrived. Their laughter became an echo against the hills, their whispered secrets carried away by the wind. Liam had never known such happiness. Love, he realized, wasn't just something that happened, it was built, nurtured like a flame. And Elena was the fire that made the world glow. But fires, if untended, could also burn. At first, the changes were subtle. Elena, once eager to ride at dawn, began arriving late, sometimes not at all. When she did come, her mind seemed elsewhere, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her coat, her gaze lost in thoughts she never shared. "Something wrong?" Liam asked one evening as Spirit stood between them, his breath a soft cloud in the winter air. "No, just tired," she replied with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Spirit, ever watchful, responded in ways Liam failed to notice. He would shift uneasily when Elena approached, his ears flicking back. When she reached for his reins, he hesitated. It was unlike him. The stallion had never been untrusting. But now, his deep brown eyes seemed to hold a silent warning. Liam dismissed it. Love was built on trust, wasn't it? He refused to believe anything was wrong. Then, one evening, a stranger arrived. His name was Daniel, a man from the city with an easy smile and the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he wanted. He had come to the village on business, or so he claimed, but it wasn't long before his attention settled on Elena. Liam noticed how her face lit up when Daniel spoke, how she laughed more freely in his presence. It was a different kind of laughter, effortless in a way that made Liam uneasy. Yet, when he mentioned it, Elena only shook her head. "You're imagining things," she said, pressing a quick kiss to his cheek. "Daniel is just a friend. Just a friend." Liam wanted to believe her, and for a while he did. But Spirit did not. The horse, who had always welcomed strangers with measured curiosity, refused to let Daniel near. The first time Daniel reached out to stroke his mane, Spirit jerked away, nostrils flaring, muscles tensed. It was an unspoken defiance, an instinct Liam should have trusted. Instead, he laughed it off. "Guess he's not a fan of city folk." Daniel only smiled, but Spirit remained rigid. His dark eyes locked on the stranger as if he could see something Liam could not. Then came the night Liam found the stable empty. Spirit's stall, always filled with the familiar scent of hay and leather, was vacant. The gate hung slightly open, as if left in careless haste. Liam's chest tightened, his breath catching. Spirit never wandered. He knew this place as home. A flicker of movement beyond the fence caught his eye, and there, standing in the dim moonlight, was Elena. She was not alone. Liam's heart pounded, dread curling in his stomach. Something was wrong. Terribly, irrevocably wrong. Liam's breath turned shallow as he stepped forward, his boots crunching against the frost-laced grass. Beyond the fence, Elena stood in the silver glow of the moon, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Beside her, Daniel loomed, his presence too assured, too familiar. But Liam's eyes were drawn to what stood between them, the unmistakable form of Spirit, his white coat reflecting the dim light. The horse's posture was rigid, his ears pinned back, muscles taut. He didn't move, didn't nuzzle Elena's shoulder like he once did. Instead, his dark eyes flickered toward Liam, holding a silent plea. "Elena!" Liam's voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. She turned sharply, as if she hadn't expected him to be there. Guilt flashed across her face before she quickly masked it with indifference. "Liam," she said, her tone carefully measured. "You shouldn't be here." Something inside him twisted. "I shouldn't be here?" He took another step forward, his pulse hammering. "What's going on?" Daniel exhaled, a smirk tugging at his lips. "You might want to calm down. This doesn't have to be dramatic." Liam's fists clenched. "Spirit, why is he here? Why isn't he in his stall?" Elena hesitated, but Daniel didn't. "Because he doesn't belong to you anymore." The world tilted. Liam's breath caught, his vision narrowing. "What are you talking about?" His gaze snapped to Elena, searching for the lie, for some explanation that made sense. She looked away. "I sold him," she admitted, voice barely audible. The words crashed over Liam like a thunderclap. His mind reeled, refusing to accept what he had just heard. "No," he said, shaking his head. "You wouldn't." "I had to." Her voice was brittle, but her eyes held no regret. "Daniel made an offer, and I took it. Liam staggered back as if struck. You sold him? Spirit isn't. He isn't some object. He's family. Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. You don't understand, Liam. I needed security. I needed something more than this. She gestured vaguely at the stables, the fields, him. Daniel can offer me a future. You can't. Liam felt the weight of her words like a blade slicing through him. He had believed in her, trusted her with everything. His heart, his love, his faith. And now, she had bartered away the one thing he held dearest, like it was nothing more than a business deal. Spirit stomped a hoof, his body shifting uneasily. Liam could see it, the defiance in the horse's stance, the unwillingness to leave. Spirit knew. Daniel sighed, impatience flickering across his face. We don't have time for this. Take him. A stable hand emerged from the shadows, a thick rope in his hands. He moved toward Spirit, but the stallion reared back, nostrils flaring. He twisted, eyes wide with panic, muscles straining. Liam lunged forward. No! But hands grabbed him, pulling him back as Daniel gave a short, sharp command. The stable hand yanked the rope hard, jerking Spirit forward. The stallion fought, his cries splitting the night like a shattered promise. Liam thrashed against the hold, his voice raw. Spirit! The last thing he saw was the white stallion disappearing into the darkness, taken from him by the one person he thought he could trust. The silence left behind was heavier than the storm in Liam's chest. The night had swallowed Spirit whole, taking with it the last piece of the life Liam had known. He stood frozen, his breath ragged, the taste of betrayal bitter on his tongue. Elena was gone. Daniel was gone. And Spirit, his truest friend, had been stolen away under the cruel disguise of a transaction. For days Liam barely spoke. The world outside the stable walls felt distant, muted. His grandfather noticed but said nothing, only placing a steady hand on his shoulder. Liam didn't need words. He needed time. Time did not heal, but it taught him to live with the wound. Weeks passed, then months. The fields, once filled with Spirit's galloping hooves, stood empty. Liam stopped visiting their favorite trails, unwilling to face the ghost of memories that lingered there. He thought of Elena sometimes, of her laughter, her touch, the warmth that had once been theirs. But it no longer hurt in the same way. The ache had settled into something quieter, something resolute. One evening, as Liam tended to the remaining horses in the stable, his grandfather walked in, carrying a folded newspaper. He held it out without a word. Liam took it, his gaze catching on a headline. Wealthy investor abandons prize stallion after failed training attempts. His hands tightened around the paper. He skimmed the article, his heart pounding. The words blurred together, but the message was clear. Daniel had given up on Spirit. The stallion, labeled as unmanageable, had been discarded. Spirit had refused to be tamed by another. A name at the end of the article caught Liam's eye. An elderly farmer had taken Spirit in, giving him shelter when no one else would. Liam was already moving before he'd finished reading. The farm was miles away, but Liam pushed forward, his pulse matching the rhythm of his determined steps. He reached the small homestead as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet. A soft neigh stopped him in his tracks. Liam turned sharply, breath-catching. There, standing in the golden light, was Spirit. His coat was streaked with dust, his mane tangled, but his eyes, those deep, knowing eyes, were the same. Liam didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, voice breaking. Spirit. The stallion's ears flicked, nostrils flaring as he took a tentative step. Then another. And then, with a sudden burst of movement, he closed the distance, pressing his head against Liam's chest. Liam exhaled shakily, fingers tangling in the familiar mane. Spirit's body trembled, but he did not pull away. He had waited. The farmer emerged from the barn, watching quietly. He never let anyone ride him, the old man said. But I think he was just waiting for the right person to come back. Liam swallowed hard, nodding. I'm here. And for the first time in months, he felt whole again. The past was gone, lost like dust in the wind. But the future, his future, was right here, standing beside him, unbroken.